After many conversations, collaborations, hard work and training, a group of 11 cyclists headed out on an adventurous cycling trip with a purpose: to raise funds and awareness for Compassion Canada's Education Response Fund for projects in Central America. We started off from San Jose with a 4-hour van trip to Playa del Coco. Well, 9 out of the 11 cyclists did anyway. Frank and Joel were sitting in Houston waiting for a flight. They had missed their connecting flight the day before because of a delayed departure in Calgary. As much as we hated to do it, we set off without them. Upon arrival in Playa del Coco, we experienced our first typical Costa Rican lunch, had a swim in the ocean, and got our bikes set up. Finally, time to take a picture of our group, minus the 2, and head out. It was an easy 17-kilometer ride along paved road. We arrived at our campsite, which was a community center located right beside a busy highway. But never mind, the tents were set up, there was a shower, and Memo, our cook, had prepared a wonderful meal. Around 7 p.m., Frank and Joel finally arrived at the campground. A quick hello and they were off again. They, along with Chris, one of the guides, and Darwin with the support vehicle, headed back to the Pacific Ocean so that they could do the trip right. We met them at the gate with a cheer and high fives. It was so good to get our group all together. Tomorrow was our first full day of cycling, so it was early to bed. After a crazy night tenting beside a highway that never quieted, we rolled out as dawn was breaking. The guide suggested we take advantage of the cooler early morning temperatures, and so most of our days began between 4 and 5:30 a.m. Today the guides wanted to make sure we got through the bustling colonial city of Liberia while it was early and the traffic would be lighter. The first 20 kilometers were on flat and paved road. It was our first stretch of busy highway riding. Once we were through Liberia, we went off the main road and onto the gravel roads. It was a clear, sunny day, and it wasn't long before we felt the heat and humidity. As we rode through villages and took in the beautiful countryside, there was the realization that this is it, we're on our way. Typically, we traveled as a group with one guide at the lead and the other at the end. A kilometer might often stretch between the first rider and the last, allowing us to each travel at our own comfortable pace. Darwin, the driver of the support vehicle, was always where he needed to be when he needed to be there, keeping us supplied with drinking water, fruit, and snacks along the way. His red van always a welcome sight after a hard climb or a tough stretch of road. Memo, our cook, was either packing up our tents from the night before, setting them up at the next campground, shopping for groceries, or cooking us our dinner at day's end. All we really ever had to do was take care of ourselves and each other. Turns out that was going to be a big enough job. They were an amazing support team for which we are very thankful. We were told that this day and the next would be our most difficult, as we would be doing some serious climbing. It didn't take long for us to realize that Costa Rican kilometers are much longer than Canadian kilometers. We soon recognized that we were in for a most challenging week, but with everyone maintaining a positive attitude, offering words of encouragement, and a lot of high fives at the top of the most difficult hills and harrowing stretches of road, spirits were high. We climbed and climbed that day. As exhilarating as it was to hit the downside of a hill, we knew that that meant there was another long uphill coming. Our guides pointed out some windmills in the distance and said that that was our destination point for the day. There's only one good reason for windmills, and it isn't because they enhance the countryside. It's because, much like southern Alberta and many parts of Canada, there's strong winds that must be captured to make it into something useful. So, along with the heat, humidity, and steep hills to climb, there was also a strong, hot wind to ride into. After 9 hours of biking, we rolled into our campsite for the night, and what a beautiful spot it was. Memo had the coffee on, and we had a chance to take a shower, such as it was. We were soon to discover that the showers were never more than a hose coming out of the wall, running only very cold water. A nice shower would be one that actually had a change room attached to it. This wasn't a very nice shower, but there was a swimming pool and beautiful surroundings, and we were happy. After a great dinner, it didn't take us long to find our sleeping bags and crawl in, the pungent aroma of possum in the air. After a hearty breakfast, we rolled up our beds, put our baggage by the cook's truck, and made sure we had everything we needed in our day pack. The sun was just coming up when we rode out this morning. After a restful night, our sleep only interrupted by barking dogs and a random calf that walked through the campground, everyone was eager to get going. No matter how tough it got, there was always that piece of road somewhere in the day that made you feel like you could cycle forever. The paved road quickly gave way to dirt roads with big rocks embedded in them. Our guides kept us off busy highways unless there was no other way around it. As a result, we spent as much time as possible off-road where there was little or no traffic to worry about. Our guides were pretty adept at giving us the information we needed about the road ahead just before we needed it. All we knew for sure about today was that it was going to be a lot of up. In fact, this was the day we would reach our highest elevation of the trip and cross the Continental Divide. Lunch was prepared for us beside a beautiful river. Chris, JC, and Darwin pulled some tables out of the van and set up a feast for us while we waited and swam in the beautiful cold water. After a refreshing break, it was back on the bike with many more hills to climb. At the point of our highest elevation, we could see the windmills we had gone past the day before behind us. We had come such a long way. And in front of us, we could see another group of windmills which would bring us to our campground for the night. We had such a long way to go. Another 9-hour day of cycling. Because of the high winds, our tents were set up inside the community center. Since we'd arrived in the later afternoon, there was time for our support team to bring out a ball to the soccer field. It didn't take long for the kids in the village to find the action, and soon a lively game ensued. Some of the kids hung around the kitchen watching Memo cook up a big pot of spaghetti and meat sauce. Needless to say, a couple kids invited themselves for dinner, and it was fun to have them join us. While they played soccer, we explored the village. Some of us found the local bar and met the lovely Pamela. Others found the convenience store and bought some Costa Rican snacks and icy cold bottles of Coke. Supper in bed seemed that was our routine already. Even the howling wind and mattresses on concrete floors couldn't keep us awake for long. Each morning before we got on our bikes, we took some time to get a brief overview of the day ahead from the guides. Then Dennis would take a few minutes to talk about our student for the day. We were given a laminated card with a picture and biography, and we dedicated that day's ride to him or her. It was a meaningful way to keep the purpose of our ride in focus. Then Mick would say a prayer of gratitude and ask for our continued safety in the day ahead. There was a hotel with a bed and a shower with hot and cold running water waiting for us at the end of this day. The weather was cool and rainy in the morning, a welcome change after the heat and humidity of the other days. Seemed that we were always wet, either from sweat or rain. We were getting used to it. Once we'd ridden up a long, steep hill coming out of the village, we were on paved, hilly roads. Whether it was knowing that a hotel awaited us or because the weather was cooler and the roads smoother, we all found the cycling to be much easier today. Passing through the town of Arenal, we noticed a German bakery. As a favor to Frank, we had to make an unscheduled stop for fresh pastry. Our route took us beside Lake Arenal all the way to the Arenal volcano. There was plenty of time to stop along the way to take in the beautiful scenery or take pictures of monkeys, sloths, toucans, and quaddies in the area. Our guides took great pleasure in sharing with us the stories of their country. We cycled 63 kilometers, but all of us would agree that they were the easiest we'd been on yet, and it was an absolutely glorious day. By the end of the day, the sun was out and very hot, so our hotel in La Fortuna was a welcome sight. We arrived early enough in the afternoon to be able to have a lunch beside the pool. The rest of the afternoon was ours to do with as we pleased. Some of us explored the town of La Fortuna, a couple of us went in search of a laundromat, and a few took advantage of the natural hot springs close by. We met that evening for dinner at a typical Costa Rican restaurant. Did I mention that we had a bed to sleep on? Feeling very refreshed after a great night's sleep, we were raring to go. We were at the halfway point in our trip, hard to believe. We'd been told that day 2 and 3 would be our toughest days because of the extreme climbing. Turns out climbing steep hills is only one kind of tough. There was so much adventure ahead of us, we had no idea. The day started off cloudy with a misty rain. Our guides described the roads ahead as Costa Rican flat, a little up, a little down. We spent most of the morning cycling along a very busy highway without shoulders. This was a stressful stretch, not only for us, but for our guides as well. There were a lot of transport trucks on the road, and if two passed each other, there probably wasn't much more than a foot between our handlebars and their rigs. Needless to say, this wasn't a stretch of road to be gazing at the scenery. The challenge for us was to ride as close as possible to the edge of the road and keep our bikes steady. We probably had more close calls than we care to think about. We're very thankful that we were kept safe from any serious injury. The morning was very wet. We'd stopped at a small village where lunch had been ordered ahead, and by afternoon the sun was out from behind the clouds. We were happy when we were able to turn off the highway. The roads for the rest of the day were gravel or variations of that theme. Some were in better shape than others. The continuous jarring on the bodies was pretty exhausting. We were excited to ride up on a little market that had ice cream and cold pop. We rolled into San Rafael by about 5 o'clock that afternoon. So after a quick shower in what was possibly our worst shower of all, we sat outside the community center enjoying our ice-cold beverages. One of the local men from the village walked over and engaged in conversation with a couple of our guys. Seems that the word had spread quickly that a bunch of gringos had ridden into town and they wanted to know what we were doing and when we were leaving. They sent him as their delegate because he was the only one to speak English. Neighborhood watch at its finest. Turns out he was very friendly and would have loved to show us more of his town. A couple of the guys went out with him for about an hour after we had dinner, but really, we were all too tired to party. Today we were set to cycle 30 kilometers, whitewater raft for 12, and then cycle another 40 kilometers. It was an ambitious plan, but we were all looking forward to switching it up a little with the rafting. We needed to get a really early start to get all that done. Allow me to skip forward to the end of the day and the part that wasn't in the plan. As you will see, the weather was rainy and the majority of the roads muddy. Whitewater rafting would take care of washing off the morning's mud. What we didn't know then was that our wet t-shirts were also going to be the only thing available to wash off the afternoon's mud. At the end of what was to be a long and arduous 12-hour day, we rolled into the campsite in the dark to hear Memo say, "The town's water is shut off. Don't know what happened, but there was water up to 15 minutes earlier." But as we set off that morning, we were oblivious, and thankfully so, as we splashed merrily over the muddy roads. We reached the river a little behind schedule, so the rafting orientation occurred as we began floating down the river. I don't think the guide was completely done before the first rapid hit us. Due to recent rains, the Class 2 and 3 rapids we were expecting turned into Class 3 plus rapids. We enjoyed a very thrilling ride with no rafts capsizing or anyone from our group being thrown overboard. Not so the one raft full of tourists traveling alongside us, where one man bounced out. We witnessed the dramatic rescue, with Chris being the hero of the day by preventing the man from being swept further down the river by blocking him with his kayak. The man was battered and bruised, but alive to tell the story, which we heard as we had a snack of fresh pineapple on the shore halfway down the river. After a quick lunch on shore, we were urged to get back on our bikes quickly. For this section of road we were to stay together, and JC set up a pretty brisk pace for us old guys that had just cycled 30 kilometers and had oars in the water for 12. We landed up riding in the dark on the last piece of road, which was very rocky and muddy. Our red van stayed behind us so we could see where the biggest rocks and deepest water-filled potholes were. It was an amazing end to a long 12-hour day. We were sure looking forward to a shower. But I've already told you how that day ended. Day 6 had been our longest and certainly most challenging day yet. After supper, JC and Darwin left in the red van, and we never saw them again. It was a planned departure, and we were sad to see them leave us this close to the end of the trip. They had other commitments, and so Mao joined us for the next 2 days. Day 7 turned out to be another 12-hour day filled with adventure. But we knew that the campsite at the end of the day would be our most luxurious one, and we had that to look forward to. There would be mattresses with real bedding, and almost certainly there would be showers. The campsite was owned by the adventure travel company we were being guided by, and we'd seen pictures in the brochure. We began the day riding in the rain. By this time we were accustomed to the rain and recognized that cloud cover with some rain was more comfortable to cycle in than doing so under the hot sun with high humidity. Wet and slightly chilled, it was a welcome sight to have the restaurant we would be eating lunch at appear out in the middle of nowhere. The lunches we were served in these small villages were always a lot of fun. The owners were always so hospitable, and today this one was happy to put on a fresh pot of coffee to warm us up. We had several river crossings on small motorboats owned and operated by locals. We climbed down steep, muddy, slippery banks, put our bikes and ourselves into the little boat, and enjoyed a ride down the lazy river going through the jungle. It was an enjoyable change to have the power source be something other than ourselves. And then all too soon we did the reverse routine of unloading us, our bikes, and climbing up another steep, muddy, slippery bank. Then there was the ride through the middle of a banana plantation led by another local guide. It was a truly Costa Rican experience. There was a slab of cement about 1 foot wide that we needed to keep our bikes on, or we would certainly fall off our bikes. Every so often there was a deep gully to cross over. We walked our bikes over these. Alternately, some of us got one of the guides to take our bike and just worried about getting ourselves over to the other side. We covered many kilometers through plantation country, which took us past more small villages, stopping beside a banana plant to observe where they were handling the bananas for market. It was dark when we pulled into our campsite, and it was beautiful. We should have suspected that this was not going to be an easy day, even though 50 kilometers was less distance than previous days, when they told us we would need to get going by 5 a.m. again. We had already celebrated a little the night before, with some toasting and congratulatory remarks on how much we'd already accomplished. This turned out to be a little premature, as the last day was as adventurous as all the others. There were 3 rivers to cross. Some of us were happy to walk our bikes across. For a few riders, going across without getting off their bike was a challenge they couldn't turn down, some going for a do-over if they fell the first time. Soon we were riding through one Caribbean village after another. It was a beautiful day for riding. We were feeling energized by a good night's sleep and the fact that we would be reaching our destination today. The fact that we were able to continue on in great spirits right to the last day was truly a testament to the strength we had as a group. Over the past days, each and every person had become an integral part of the team. The timely words of encouragement, the laughter, and great conversations helped pass the kilometers quickly. We'd heard that there was abandoned railroad tracks that we would be riding on. This was probably for most of us one of the most challenging stretches of the whole trip. The gravel in the middle was loose, and so pedaling was tough. Keeping the bike between the rails wasn't easy. The guides had mentioned a railroad bridge that we would be crossing, another piece of information some of us were glad hadn't really resonated until we came upon it. There it was, the railroad bridge. Most weren't fazed by having to cross over it, even though the tides were very uneven, and you could see the river flowing below, a river that probably had crocodiles in it. then the ocean. We did it! The corks were popped on the champagne and we toasted to our success. We had a swim in the ocean and took many pictures. It was impossible to absorb the enormous undertaking we had just completed successfully. Long after the stories have all been told and the photos shared, the 11 cyclists will always have the memories of a trip of a lifetime. Special thanks to Dennis and Mick, who put their dream into action, and to Dennis, who collaborated with Trish from Bike Hike Adventures and Tracy from Compassion Canada. Thanks to our fantastic support team, whose tireless work made this trip so successful. We'd like to thank our official corporate sponsors and everyone who supported Cycling for Compassion. As of December 20th, 2012, $35,817 has been raised for Compassion Canada's Education Response Fund.